Hello, my name is John Reynolds. On this episode of Extraordinary Life Stories, I'm talking to Avnish Goyal CBE. Avnish is a successful entrepreneur, businessman, philanthropist, and the founder of the charity the Goyal Foundation. Avnish is the chairman of award-winning Hallmark Luxury Care Homes, and with his wife, Anita Goyal MBE, is passionate about making a positive social impact in business and through their charity work. I want to know the why that inspired them to embark on the important charity work they're doing, empowering children, young people and women to be the best they can be and tackle disadvantage in the UK and abroad. I'm very much looking forward to my conversation with Avnish. Avnish, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, John, for having me.
Tell me, who is Avnish Goyal?
Good question, John. I've spent all my life working that out, but I think it's a journey of self-discovery, and I've spent, especially the last 25 years in that journey of navel gazing, really looking at what my life's about, what my purpose is, what legacy I want to leave behind, and the impact I can have on the world. And that's what I've been doing.
I can't wait to dig into that, but take me back to a young Avnish growing up. What did you want to be when you were growing up?
When I was growing up, I wanted to be an astronomer. I don't know about an astronaut, but probably, because I was really into science. So I used to read all the books around that. But I really had no idea. Then as I was growing up, my mum wanted me to be a doctor. Typical Asian family.
Sure.
For me to be a doctor. I had no passion about being a doctor. I saw that it would be a good thing to be a doctor. I didn't get into medicine, decided to go and do accountancy at Newcastle University, which is great. Then qualified as an accountant with PricewaterhouseCoopers, as it is now. And then I wanted to make a difference and create something rather than be a historian, which I thought being an auditor was.
Yeah, and by creating, that's very entrepreneurial. Take me back to some early influences that influenced that entrepreneurial streak in you.
From the age of 11, my family, my brother and my parents, we bought a family business. It was a retail shop in Romford, Essex. And from the age of 11, I was also thrust into that world of business, commerce, doing paper rounds, working in the shop, going to cash and carry, and all the things that really started me to understand business.
Sure.
And so I get interested in it. And as well as learning about quality. One of the things that in my company I talk about is the crisp story. When I was arranging the crisps, and my mum stopped me and she said, "You're doing it all wrong." And I was like, 11, 12-year-old, like,
Sure.
There's nothing wrong with these, Mum. I said, "No, they are. You've got all the colours wrong." She made me arrange them in the right colour order, so there was contrast, and she made me plump them up and create these lovely straight lines. So when I look back and I was talking to my teams about standards, from the age of 11, we were being taught like standards, and that really had an impact. It sounds really small, but those little things make a huge difference in how you then show up in life.
Yeah, it's like a discipline. You can do it one way and you could be lethargic with it, lazy, and then that will have a knock-on effect on the productivity, the profitability.
Yeah.
And I know ultimately you actually got into property. Tell me about that story.
I was working as an accountant. It was 1991. We're in a deep recession. Interest rates have gone to 15%, I think, or thereabouts. And morale in accountancy was really low. I didn't really enjoy it at that stage. I was a senior. And I wanted to do something different. Like I said earlier, I wanted to create something, not be a historian. So I obviously we were in property already and we're in business. And I saw an incredible opportunity to use some of the skills I'd learned and go out, come in the family business and go and buy properties and rent them out to tenants and make a difference. And that's what I did.
Awesome. And that quality, that sort of standard of quality, how did you bring that into the business? Because you're an entrepreneur now. So you're now buying, refurbishing, tenanting properties. Did you carry that quality concept into your business?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the key things I did was I remember sitting in my car, having done some research about the properties and seeing the returns I could get. And these two voices were going on in my head. One was like, "It can't be that easy. You're leaving this great job." And the other was, "No, it is. You've done the research."
Yeah.
And luckily that voice won and the other voice then became silent.
Sure.
And then I decided and I never looked back. And then, use those principles. It was all about, my mum always said, if you're going to do something, do it really well or don't do it.
Yeah.
And that principle, I played that through into the properties. I saw others cutting corners, doing things that weren't wholesome. And I just made sure that we just went the extra mile. Often the extra mile wasn't a lot, but it was enough to differentiate yourself from your competition. And we had our properties, the void periods were minimal. We let our properties we had happy tenants.
Mm.
If things went wrong, I got them done quickly, because I imagined, what would it be like if that was me? So
Empathy.
I applied that principle, yeah. And
Love that.
it was
So
brilliant.
you had empathy involved, and ultimately you needed to scale that. So that again, that entrepreneurial side of you, I know how capital intensive property is. How did you go about ultimately scaling a portfolio, bringing capital in?
Yeah, I mean, the key thing was that when you buy these properties and you do them up, you then add value. We had income coming in from the businesses as well. And then when you have an uplift on the properties, you go back to the bank and then refinance that. That brings more money in, and it's just a loop. And then you've got the rental income coming in as well, especially with the returns we were getting.
Yeah.
And so before long, you kind of got that leverage and that multiplier effect.
Yeah.
And that was, we took it to about 100 properties before I then moved on to my next opportunity.
And the next opportunity, I believe, is the care home side of things. I'd love to know the why behind going into the care. Was there a mission-led side of things where you spotted that it perhaps wasn't done as well as it could be, bringing that word quality in? Or was it more that the opportunity from a business side of things?
I think largely it was, I'd been doing the property side for about 6 years, and I had one team member, a guy called Rob, who was receptionist and did all sorts of other things. But I was in a little office and I wanted to grow. And one of the things that my mum and my uncle have been two big influences in my life, amongst many people. And one of the key messages was, life is about who you become as much as who you have. And you've always got to remember who you're becoming. And what I was seeing with the property side, it was becoming quite easy. We buy these properties, we do them up, we had a formula, it was working, it was easy.
You were cookie cutting.
Yeah, and it was great, I was loving it.
Yeah.
And I thought, there's more, there's got to be more to life than this. I've got good at it. I could have probably retired at that point and had a quite good life really at the age of 30. But life isn't about retiring, life is about continuing to do great things. So I'd seen family members, extended family members running a care home. I was always envious of that. It was a lovely big property. And I knew it'd make me grow. I knew it'd make me a bigger person, because I had no idea how to run a care home. So I threw myself in. I had an opportunity nearly 27 years ago now to buy my first care home. I bought it with other family members. And it really did. It was like who I am today versus who I was 27 years ago. The two different people. The Avnish now to the Avnish 27 years ago. What I've had to deal with, the trials and tribulations, the challenges. And then it's been an incredible journey. Yeah,
and I think for me, listening to you, the fact that you could have retired, many people would. They'd be sitting in the sunshine somewhere, avoiding the freezing cold in England right now, and dare I say stale. Dare I say there's no mission behind, there's no purpose. And sitting with you now, I can feel this purpose just kind of oozing from you. What, in terms of that whole self-development piece, talk me through that journey. You mentioned sort of 25 years of that. How easy has it been, and how current are you today with all the things that really work for you, and kind of almost, whether it's gym, whether it's reading books, podcasts, how have you managed that, and how do you manage it?
Well, life is a continual journey of ups and downs. And I learned a great phrase that things are not in the way, they're on the way.
Yeah.
And I love that, because sometimes when we have challenges, we wish them away. But actually, they're there for a reason. It's a bit like the caterpillar turning into the butterfly, and it has to break through the chrysalis. The chrysalis, isn't it?
Yeah, sure.
You can't cut that open. It has to break its way through it to become that beautiful butterfly. And I think life is like that. Now, I discovered I didn't know what personal development was 27 years ago. And I've told this story so many times, but I'm going to keep telling it. My uncle said to me, you've got to get into personal development. I had no idea what he was talking about. Now I look back and think, gosh, how ignorant was I? Didn't even know that. I think it wasn't mainstream then either.
Sure.
And so my first book that I read was How to Win Friends and Influence People. It was on his bookshelf. I thought, he keeps going on about this. Let me take him up on what he's saying. And I was blown away. Then I went on to read The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And again, I was blown away. It really opened me up to, there's a whole new world out there that I have no idea about, that I need to get into, because it's given me tools and skills to be a better version of myself. And I became hungry for it. And one of the things that I found in myself is that when I get into something, I want to do it really well. I want to be the best at it. I want to be industry leading and so on. And with personal development, that became me. I became I'm not sure the monster's the right word, but
you were consuming it.
Maybe people thought I was a monster because I just wanted to talk about it all the time.
Sure.
If you were out with me, I'd be going, you've got to read this book, you've got to do that. This is going to change your life.
Yeah.
And then from there, I discovered something called the Landmark Forum. A friend of mine had done it. There's a course in London that you can do. I did 2 years of workshops through that organisation. That was a game changer. Honestly, it took me to a whole nother level of thinking, got me to who I was in the past and who I could create myself to be in the future, not constrained by the past, but anything I wanted to be, and it was incredible. And then I met Tony Robbins, and that was then another game changer for me.
I bet. And then Tony Robbins was, obviously, he was the one that stood out for me. And I think, I'm late to the party. I'm probably really 3 years of, almost like you're saying, without, again, being a monster, just consuming, just really hungry to learn, to talk to people that have been there, done that, stand on the shoulder of giants. And yet I think Tony Robbins coming in as an American, as an English person growing up, it was a bit like that's a bit kind of woo-woo and, kind of actually man up. You're on your own with this, which is a completely wrong mindset. But it's on the up. The whole thing now is being encouraged massively, isn't it? And I think one thing that's really relevant, which you mentioned, your mum said, be the best you can be. You've instilled that into your children. I'm doing that into my children. We're both parents. What can be done at an earlier age? And how have you managed to do that with your own children, to instill that kind of mindset? Because you wished you'd found it earlier, then you've been doing it 25 years. I wished I'd found it earlier, and I'm 3 years in. So how can you bring that in without the kids going, oh, Dad, this is so boring?
They're going to say that. Yeah. So I have this concept that about nudging. You can't make young people do things. You can try. I mean, we were told to do things. We did as we were told. But things are different now, and you've got to accept that. And I think it's far better to nudge. Now, luckily, my kids were quite young when I got into personal development, so they were just running around as youngsters, absorbing it. And so it was fortunate I got them earlier than before they became teenagers. And obviously when they were teenagers, and they're 26 and 29 and whatever now, but they will sometimes vote with their feet and not come to things. And we just done this vision board and goal setting workshop. They were all there. They were dancing on stage. They were part of it. One daughter was doing the AV at the back with the music and everything. The other two were helping out, and I'm so proud. But it's a journey. And something I learned from a great book. Actually, I listened to the audio tape by I think it was Suzanne Bailey or Bale about building self-esteem in your child. That taught me a lot about parenting. About how do you teach them self-discipline rather than enforcing rules and regulations on them. Because how are they going to do things right when you're not looking, when you're not there, when they go to university, when they get married? How are they going to have their own internal yardstick or North Star that guides them? That's what I've been trying to do with my children.
And I think one thing as well is I use that kind of, Dad, this is so boring, or not listening to him again, and so on. But actually, and you use the term nudging, if you can actually make it real to children, whether they're our own children or children growing up, that actually it's about finding your purpose, your passion. The kid that's being encouraged to go out and train on the field, kicking a ball around, that doesn't want to play football, is not going to be interested. But actually, if you turn that into kind of, well, what do you want to be? And then that's what you need to do to get there. Sometimes that can be a light bulb moment. What more can be done in schools and in education side of things that's just clearly not being done to help that?
I think we look at the actions rather than the end. What are we trying to achieve? So, for example, when and a lot of people who'll be listening to this, they'll have young people that they're trying to get through 11 plus or GCSEs and so on. If you don't know why you're doing it, like I remember when my son was doing his 11 plus and we were trying to get him to study, he didn't want to study. But when we took him to the school that we wanted him to get into and he looked around, I remember him turning to me and saying, Dad, that's why you want me to study. You want me to come to here. And completely changed him because he knew his goal. So the actions that he was taking was for this goal. And I think that sometimes we forget, what is the goal? We get our young people to focus on the actions. They can't see why. And therefore they're not going to be engaged in it because it feels like hard work. But when like I put something out on social media the other day, I had a late night. I've got this exercise routine that I'm committed to. I've been doing it now nearly for 3 months. I didn't want to get out of bed. And I had all these reasons. I may have had 4.5 hours sleep. I'm tired. I've eaten too much the night before. I had a big meal. I'll give it a break. No, the commitment was bigger than the excuse. So I got myself out of bed. I do want to break my commitment. And I felt good afterwards. I didn't train quite as hard, but it was okay because I kept my word, my commitment.
I get that. And I try and practice that. as hard as it can be, but it's a discipline, isn't it? It's a consistency.
Yeah, I've not been, I'm not going to lie, it's taken years and years of conditioning and developing, not beating yourself up.
Yeah, being kind to yourself.
The key thing I think is that what I used to do before, if I committed to something and I didn't, so for example, if I wanted to not eat certain foods or be on a diet, for example, I don't believe in diets now, I believe in a lifestyle, and if I fell off the wagon, I'd go, oh, see, you knew you couldn't do it. What a waste of time that was. And I just completely abandon it rather than go, it's okay to fall down once. Just pick yourself back up, recommit, get on with it.
I like that.
That's what I've learned.
And that's a big thing for me, which is ultimately failure. And being afraid of failure, this is me talking. So that fear of not doing something or starting something because I might not be very good at it, well, that's for other people. Yeah. And I think that whole reframing, which has been talked about so much more, both in business, sport, and of course it's a massive theme in science. You have to fail continually to find a breakthrough. And it's been talked about a lot more, but have you had any significant knockbacks or failings, and what have you learned from them?
Yeah, personally, I think we should take the word failure out of our vocabulary. They're outcomes. Because I know from some of my biggest failures, as we call it, I've had some of the best successes. Because if I hadn't gone through and had that, so I'll give you an example. Yeah. If I hadn't got divorced, I wouldn't be in the relationship I'm in now.
Sure.
Right? So at the time, it felt like I had failed, to be honest with you. 10, 12, 13 years ago, whenever it was, I still used to use some of that language. I didn't want to fail in my first marriage. But eventually when I realized that it wasn't failure, it wasn't working, and there was something new that I needed to move into in the next chapter. Yeah. Because sometimes that fear of failure keeps you going into something that isn't ever going to work.
You could still be in a failed marriage.
Yeah.
Broken marriage.
And now, and there's lots of other examples, often when I've seen that, the things that were, failures actually give me the life I have because I learned stuff from that failure, from that thing, that outcome.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have what I've got today. There was a lesson in that. And I think often what we've got to look at is the reason for it. Now, who knows whether it's true or not, but if we just look at it like, there's a reason that happened. What's the reason? What can I learn from it? And then move on.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if you keep saying, I failed, your self-esteem drops, your energy drops, and you can't do anything without...
Drags you down.
It drags you down.
Yeah. And I know that talking off camera before, that whole striving to be the best version of yourself, which, is exactly what I'm trying to do. It's exactly what we all should be trying to do. Makes you better for others, makes you more... able and capable in business, let alone being a husband, a parent, and having a life for yourself. In context of sitting here and sort of paralleling that, you've been very successful. The business is successful. You've been able to be a philanthropist and set up your own charities and support other people's charities like the Caudwell Children. How would you define success sitting here now?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as we all know, society generally defines success as wealth. I've learned, luckily, from others that wealth is only one aspect of success. Don't get me wrong, we all would like a bit more money and it allows us to buy things. But one thing that somebody who I have followed for many years once said was that wealth just allows you to arrive at your problems in style. And I quite like that because...
I've not heard that before.
Often we think that, I'd love to be like that wealthy person.
Sure.
I've got the good fortune to know a number of billionaires who are great friends of mine. Now, they have challenges too, right? And we have these banter, and they'd like my life, and I'd like their life, kind of thing, But actually, you've only got your life. So for me, success is about having it all. And there's something called the Wheel of Life, and for the viewers, the listeners, just Google it. Wheel of Life. It's a wheel, and it's got cut into segments, and it's different aspects of your life: relationships, spirituality, work, career, fun, hobbies, spirituality, giving back. And you rate yourself from 0 to 10, and then you colour in the bit from the centre to what you've, like if you're an 8 out of 10, you draw the arc on the 8, and then you see. And we do this every year in our workshops. We do this ourselves, and I started doing this 25 years ago. And I really got to see, and most people will see that they focus on the things they're good at, and they over-focus on those things like work, for example, or exercise, etc. And they then neglect other areas, and then we all wonder why we're not feeling fulfilled. Yeah. Because what I've learned over the years is that Wheel of Life, really making sure that there are no areas that are deficient. Because if you're really successful in your career, but your relationships suck, you're not going to be fulfilled, right?
No.
And if you're not, or if you're not exercising, your health and well-being is not where it needs to be because you're over focusing on work. How many of us know people who just are addicted to work, for example, right? And we say, oh, well, we're doing it for our children or we're doing it for our family. But often, and I learned that years ago, that's a lie. There's a moment when it stops being putting bread on the table, but it becomes an obsession. It becomes your mission, but not at the expense of everything else.
No.
So success is about
how do you have it
all. And it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
It's I've been on this journey for nearly 30 years now.
Yeah.
And I think I'm getting quite good at it.
Yeah.
But there's still areas that I have to focus on, things that still go wrong. And I think, oh my God, why is that?
Yeah. And actually just using that wheel of life and that whole balancing, anyone watching or listening that's in business, that's married, children, trying to have a life as well, get a game of golf in and so on, how have you managed and how do you manage to juggle that? Because that's often a constant source of maybe conversations or arguments in families and so on. You're always away, or we need more money. Yeah. So then the both parents might be trying to work harder to make more money and then not being a great parent. How have you managed to keep that balance?
Well, a great phrase that my wife Anita taught me was, "You're not a tree." I was like, well, what's that? As in, trees can't move, right? Mm-hmm. But you can. Yeah. So anything that you don't like, move. Yeah. Now, often people, oh no, I can't. If you have to work away and it doesn't serve your family, then go and find another job.
It's really, I like that.
Whereas people go, no, I can't. I've got to spend 6 months here and da-da-da. But there's
That's
an
impact,
mindset,
isn't it?
There's an impact back at home. And then at some point, often I've from billionaires to people with less money have said, I wish I could have done things differently. Wish I spent more time with the kids. Yeah. And so luckily, I've learned from masters from the last 30 odd years now and said, right, how can I take the best of what they've learned in their lifetimes and absorb that into my life? Yeah. Because, for example, the children thing, I've always made sure that, I've had time for my kids. I've gone to their parents' evenings, gone to their sports days, made sure I'm there for them. And I always put work second. Yeah. And often I've seen when I've gone to events where the kids are on their own, parents haven't turned up because they're in these high-powered jobs and so on and so forth. So, I think fair play to balance is key.
And evolving from that, achievement. So successful business, you clearly are a great parent, great husband.
Well, I hope so.
You're CBE.
Ask the family.
I've been fortunate enough to meet your family, and there's a glow. There's always going to be stuff that goes on, but there's a bond, there's a respect, there's love. But you're a CBE. So in that overarching question of what's your greatest achievement, what would you say?
Personally, it's really difficult. I've got wonderful children. I've got this wonderful wife, Anita, who you've met. And I think having that ecosystem where we've got, a good family life that's constantly evolving. Don't get me wrong. Not like we never have problems. So I don't want anybody thinking that I'm coming here saying that life is wonderful and perfect. And it isn't wonderful and perfect. The key thing about life is how do you deal with problems when they arise? Yeah. And that's the thing I'm continuing to learn. How do I deal with stuff? How do I not put things off? So family, I think, for me, is the personal side, that achievement of having a great family life and family who respect and love me. And then on the work side, I think, is having a business where I can walk into a room and people have respect for what we do, the impact we've had on the social care sector. Yeah. And I think you can't buy that.
But you've created it. You created that culture. And I think it comes from that self-development side of things as well, the fact that you look after yourself and you want to look after your staff, and then the business is flourishing. And actually, I'd be really interested to know, because there's so many things you can do, from ice baths and cold showers to yoga to the gym to consuming books and so on, both mentally and physically. What works for you?
So in terms of
keeping yourself mentally and physically fit, which again, you've immersed yourself into this. So I'm really interested to know what actually you do. So on a daily basis, a weekly basis, from an exercise point of view, from a getting out in the fresh air, and from maybe continuing to listen to podcasts. Sure. I mean, what are the things that...
It's not that structured. Okay. It's not like I've got set routines, apart from my exercise now, which I'm now doing religiously every day. But it's been ad hoc, sporadic. If I'm on the cross trainer, I'll put on a TED talk, because I'm then nourishing the mind and the body at the same time. That's really useful, doubling up on my time. I'm always listening to TED talks and podcasts and throwing myself into seminars. I've gone back into doing some work with Tony Robbins on his Platinum Partnership. and getting other people involved in that as well.
Yeah.
Reading books. And I think another key one is hanging around with people that you want to be like.
Yeah.
Or so because we are a product of the environment we're in, our ecosystem, and so on. So it's really making sure that you choose your friends wisely, because you'll become like your friends.
That's good advice.
Just making sure of that. And I think I've got incredibly wonderful friends who either inspire me or I get to inspire.
Yeah.
And it's a two-way process. And sometimes it's both.
Yeah.
We learn from each other.
There's so much you've done, there's so much you're doing. What have you not done yet that you very much are aspiring to still do?
Well, I'm going to be abseiling down a very big, tall building very shortly, which unfortunately I can't tell you which one it is, because there's a block on it. So that's going to be a big achievement for me.
Yeah.
So going to do that.
Well done.
But yeah, no, I want to really increase the work that we're doing with our charitable stuff.
Yes.
We've got this target to reach 1 million young people with our free personal development workshops within Spark.
What's the name of the charity?
In Spark.
In Spark.
Yeah, it's part of the Goyal Foundation.
Yeah.
And this came out of COVID when we were locked up in our houses. And Anita, my wife, was a teacher for 20 years. And one of the passions I had when I did personal development was, and we touched on it earlier, was why can't we have this? If I'd have learned the skills I learned when I was 30, 35, 40, and you've touched on it, John, as well, is we should be teaching this in schools, as well as maths, physics, chemistry, algebra, and trigonometry. All that is really great.
Yeah.
And we've got to learn these skills too.
Yeah.
How do we manage our mindset? How do we grow and develop and be the best versions of ourselves? So we're really keen to get this stuff into schools.
Yeah.
And so that's a huge passion of mine as well.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you all the way on that. And you're a busy man. You've made time to speak to me today, so thank you so much. I'm learning from you all the time, and that was a big why behind the program, to be able to learn from someone like yourself. So thank you, Avnish.
Thank you, John, for having me.
Cheers.